What if, even before Adam was created, a heavenly war among the gods had already shaped the destiny of all humanity? What if I told you that this cosmic conflict, full of mysteries and secrets buried for thousands of years, holds the answers to questions no one ever dared to ask? Very few people know the truth about this spiritual battle, and those who have uncovered it never look at history the same way again. This video isn't just another explanation. It's a deep dive into a puzzle that spans the ages and challenges everything we thought we knew about the origins of the world and mankind. Get ready, because the revelations you're about to hear might shake your most deeply held beliefs. Have you ever heard of the Elohim? Celestial beings described in ancient texts as gods who walked the earth even before humans were created. What if these beings weren't just legends or metaphors, but real entities locked in an unseen war, one that influenced every step of humanity from the very beginning? The Bible, along with other ancient and hidden writings, contains pieces of this story, but much of it has been lost, erased, or twisted over centuries to keep this truth under wraps. Why did that happen? Who would want to erase these records? And most importantly, what does this war mean for our future? Imagine for a moment that everything we know about Adam's creation is just part of a much bigger story. Before Adam, before Eden, something unimaginable occurred. A battle between celestial forces, a shaking of the spiritual realms, a conflict not just over power, but over something deeper, the fate of the human soul. Why was this war fought? Who led the fight? And what secrets were hidden to keep us from ever learning the truth? For thousands of years, ancient myths, spiritual traditions, and sacred texts have pointed to this cosmic battle. The Sumerians talked about the Anunnaki, the Greeks about Titans and Olympian gods, and the Hebrews about Lucifer and fallen angels. What if all these stories are pieces of the same reality, seen through the lens of different civilizations trying to make sense of the incomprehensible? Have you ever wondered why so many cultures tell stories about gods falling from the sky, wars among deities, and mysteries that go back before humanity? Is it coincidence, or clues to a carefully hidden truth? This video will take you on a journey connecting spiritual secrets with historical revelations that defy ordinary logic. Let's dig into what the Bible really says, the verses often ignored, the books banned, the messages that seem to whisper something only a few are ready to hear. Why was this information censored? More importantly, what does it mean for us today, in a world that might still be echoing the effects of that ancient battle? Are you ready to question everything you think you know about creation? Are you willing to explore the deepest mysteries where heaven and earth have been at war? If so, come with me, because in the next few minutes, you'll discover revelations that could change how you see humanity's history forever. But before we get to the most shocking truths, we need to understand how this story began, who the key players in this celestial conflict were, and why humanity stands at the center of a secret buried for thousands of years. Now that you're starting to grasp the scope of this mystery, I want to hear from you. What do you think about a war in heaven before Adam? Could these stories hide truths we're not ready to face? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might open new doors for others searching for the truth. If this content is making you think, please leave a like. It helps this video reach more people who need to hear these secrets. Your likes and comments help this channel grow and continue delivering deep, transformative revelations. When you engage, you're telling YouTube that this topic matters and deserves to be seen, helping spread this message to thousands who are lost in a sea of shallow information. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Hit subscribe and ring the bell so you won't miss upcoming videos where we'll explore even more shocking mysteries, secrets, and forbidden truths wiped from history. Don't miss the next big revelation just because you didn't subscribe. This is your chance to be part of a community unafraid to seek answers. You're part of this journey, and every comment, like, and subscription helps us uncover what's been buried for millennia together. So comment now, leave a like, subscribe, and let's keep digging, because the next revelation might be even bigger than you expect. Have you ever wondered why so many different cultures, from distant places and times, tell stories of gods coming down from the heavens and shaping human history? It's not just the Bible that talks about celestial beings with power over creation and mankind. Ancient peoples, the Sumerians, Egyptians, Greeks, and even indigenous groups around the world, all carry legends of powerful beings, some kind and others destructive, who fought epic battles long before humans appeared. These stories, often dismissed as myths or metaphors, may actually hold clues to a deeper, more shocking spiritual reality. What if all of this is connected somehow? What if the gods of ancient times were actually the same spiritual beings the Bible calls angels and principalities? Those who played a real role in shaping the world we live in today. When we read scripture, the term Elohim shows up many times in the Old Testament. This word, often just translated as God, can also mean divine beings or powers. That alone changes how we understand certain passages. Could Elohim refer not only to the Creator, but also to other spiritual beings who were around before and during the creation of man? This idea might sound strange at first, but think about it. The Bible itself talks about a conflict in heaven, a moment when Lucifer, a being of light, rebelled against the Most High and took a third of the angels down with him. What if the spiritual war described in Revelation 12 wasn't just a one-time event, but part of a much bigger cosmic battle, a clash between realms that happened before Eden? Take the Sumerians, for example. They spoke of the Anunnaki, beings who came from the heavens and directly interfered with human life. Many scholars see Sumerian myths as just made-up stories to explain the unexplainable. But what if they're distorted memories of real events, passed down through generations until they turned into legend? The similarities between those stories and some biblical accounts are too striking to ignore. When we talk about the war of the gods before Adam, we're really talking about a spiritual battle for power, control, and influence over what was coming next. Humanity. And that changes everything. Humans weren't created by accident. They were the center point of a war between light and darkness, order and chaos, between those who served the Creator and those who chose to rebel. Have you ever wondered why so many Bible passages get overlooked or only get a surface-level interpretation? Why were books like Enoch, which talk about fallen angels and battles in heaven, left out of the Bible? Who decided what we could or couldn't know? The official history we received was carefully shaped to hide these truths. There are verses that give clear hints, but they're rarely mentioned. Like in Job 38:7, where God talks to Job about creation, saying, "The morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy." Who are these sons of God who existed before humans? And why is it so important to understand this context? The truth is, this war wasn't just some distant event. It left marks we can still see today. Many spiritual systems, belief structures, and even the crises we face in the modern world may have roots in this original conflict. The invisible battles we feel every day, the forces that seem to work against what's good, might all be reflections of something much bigger that started before Adam took his first breath. That's what we'll explore in this video, connecting the pieces of this puzzle so you can see what thousands of years have hidden. What's really interesting is that all these cultures, despite their differences, talk about a time before humans, a time when gods or divine beings fought over land, power, and authority. Greek mythology tells of a war between the Titans and the Olympian gods, a battle that changed everything. In Norse legends, there's the story of a war in the heavens, culminating in Ragnarok, the end and rebirth of the world. What if these stories are just different versions of the same event described in the Bible? The rebellion of Lucifer and the fall of his angels. When you think about it, maybe all these accounts point to a single spiritual truth that time tried to erase. As you listen, I want you to think with me. Why are so many people afraid to dig into these topics? Because deep down, we feel there's something real behind these stories. What if this knowledge, buried for centuries, is the key to understanding not only the past, but also the present and the future? That's why you should stick around until the end of this video, because we're going to get into details that might open your mind to something few are ready to hear. And have you heard of the Book of Enoch? This ancient text, though not part of the traditional Bible, reveals shocking details about fallen angels, wars in heaven, and how these beings interacted with humans. It's almost impossible to talk about the war of the gods before Adam without mentioning these stories. Many say Enoch explains how some of these beings corrupted humanity by sharing forbidden knowledge and trying to derail the Creator's original plan. Sound familiar? Maybe that's why this book was banned from most religious traditions. But the truths it holds still echo, and we'll dive into them in the next few minutes. For now, I want you to head to the comments and tell me, do you think all these ancient stories, biblical, Sumerian, Greek, and others, are connected? Write it down. I want the truth. I need to know you're with me on this search. I want to see how many of you are ready to keep going, because in the next section we'll start connecting the dots and show how this war left clear signs right before our eyes, even if most people don't see them. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to witness a war not fought with human weapons, but with spiritual forces beyond imagination? Even before humans existed, before Adam took his first breath, a cosmic battle happened in heaven. A confrontation so massive it left eternal marks on the universe and on the story of creation. This war isn't just a metaphor. It's a real event hinted at in various biblical passages and backed up by apocryphal texts that dared to reveal what official history tried to erase. When we read Isaiah 14, we meet Lucifer, described as someone who wanted to rise above the stars of God, not just chasing power, but aiming for ultimate worship. That thirst for greatness led to his fall, a fall that didn't happen alone, but took a third of the angels down with him. This rebellion wasn't just defiance. It sparked a spiritual war that changed the entire order of the universe. Ezekiel 28 gives us more insight into this mysterious figure, comparing him to an anointed cherub, perfect in beauty, full of wisdom, but corrupted by pride. The text reveals that before humans were created, there was already a hierarchy in the spiritual realm, a perfect order, and within that order, ambition and desire caused a break. Imagine a being with direct access to the Creator's throne, walking among fiery stones, who decided that serving wasn't enough. He wanted to rule. That hunger for power isn't so far from us. It still echoes today in human ambition. Maybe that's why the Bible constantly warns us about the dangers of pride and rebellion. The Book of Enoch, one of the most controversial yet fascinating ancient texts, expands on this story by describing the Watchers, angels who came down to earth, drawn by the beauty of human women, and ended up corrupting themselves and humanity with forbidden knowledge. This shows that the war wasn't limited to heaven. It spilled over into the physical world, bringing a spiritual battle that still affects us today. Enoch paints scenes of divine judgment against these beings, showing that God never lost control, but allowed the conflict to surface to fulfill a higher purpose. This celestial war wasn't just about territory or power. It was a struggle over the very essence of creation, truth, and the purity of the original plan. Think about it. If a third of the angels fell, That means millions of celestial beings chose rebellion, a choice that directly impacts our world. Have you ever sensed invisible forces working against what's good? That feeling isn't just in your head. It reflects this ongoing spiritual battle playing out behind the scenes of our reality. Some biblical passages make it clear this war started before the earth itself was formed. Take Revelation 12, for example. It shows Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon and his followers. This conflict isn't just something coming in the future. It's already happened and is still unfolding in the spiritual realm. The Bible makes it clear we're not alone in this story. We're part of a much bigger narrative where our choices mirror that original fight between light and darkness. When we talk about the war of the gods before Adam, we have to understand that humans were created amid conflict. We didn't come into a neutral world. We stepped onto a stage where opposing forces were already battling. This changes everything about how we see our existence. When God created Adam and Eve, He placed them in a perfect garden, but the enemy was already there, ready to corrupt and deceive. That's why the serpent was already in Eden, because this war started long before humans did. It wasn't just temptation. It was the continuation of a rebellion that had been raging for ages. Can you imagine what it means to live in a universe where beings with powers beyond our understanding have fought battles over us? No wonder Paul reminds us in Ephesians 6:12 that our struggle isn't against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. This war is real, and ignoring it is like closing your eyes while the battlefield unfolds all around you. When we talk about gods, angels, and divine beings, we're not talking ancient myths. We're talking about spiritual realities that still influence human life. Many scholars try to explain these stories as symbols of good and evil. But can we really reduce everything to just metaphors when we see so many signs of this battle in today's world? Think about the injustice, wars, division, and chaos everywhere. These all have deep spiritual roots, and understanding the war before Adam helps us see why things are the way they are. This isn't just an old story. It's a warning that the world we see is only a shadow of a much bigger reality. You might not have thought of the Bible as a book of war, but it's filled with spiritual battles and accounts of conflicts between invisible realms. What amazes me is how these stories line up with ancient myths about struggles among gods, falls of celestial beings, and world-shaping disasters. What if all of this is part of the same story told from different angles? What if these ancient cultures were trying to describe what they saw, or what was revealed to them, about this great conflict? I want you to think about this and tell me in the comments. Do you believe this celestial war still shapes our world today? Write it down. The battle continues. If you feel these forces are still active among us, I want to see who's truly awake to this reality. In the next section, we'll go even deeper, looking not just at who these rebellious beings were, but what drove them, and how this fits into the bigger plan of creation. Who were these gods mentioned in ancient texts? That's one of the most fascinating questions we can ask when we explore humanity's oldest scriptures and traditions. When we talk about Elohim, we're referring to a term that shows up a lot in the Bible and is usually just translated as God. But Elohim is actually a plural word, and that changes everything. In many places, it doesn't just mean the Creator, but also other divine beings, celestial figures around God's throne, each with a specific role in the order of the universe. In some cultures, these beings were seen as powerful gods, able to interfere with creation and the destinies of humans. But were they really gods in the absolute sense? Or just creatures with great spiritual power who earned reverence because of their greatness? The Bible makes it clear there's a spiritual hierarchy. Archangels, messenger angels, cherubim, and seraphim. each with a role, each with a place in the heavenly order. Among them are figures like Michael, the warrior archangel who leads battles on God's behalf, Gabriel, the messenger who brings divine revelations, and others whose names and stories have been lost over time, as if there was a plan to hide just how complex this invisible world really is. When Isaiah 6 describes the seraphim, it talks about beings burning like fire, constantly proclaiming God's holiness. That description is so powerful, it's no wonder people hearing about such creatures thought of them as gods. But not all of these beings stayed loyal. The fallen angels, mentioned in several passages, are those who rebelled against God, following Lucifer in his attempt to seize the heavenly throne. These beings, once full of light, turned dark, spreading corruption and error throughout the world. The Book of Enoch dives deeper into this, calling them watchers or Grigori. Originally guardians of heaven, they chose disobedience and came down to earth, driven by forbidden desires. Some of these fallen angels taught humanity things that should have stayed hidden. Arts of war, witchcraft, and secret knowledge that led people into destruction and idolatry. Have you noticed how these stories about fallen angels sound a lot like tales of rebellious gods in other cultures? The Greeks told of titans who challenged the Olympian gods, and the Babylonians talked about beings who brought chaos and tried to take control. It's almost like all these stories are echoes of the same truth, just told from different perspectives. What if the gods of ancient myths were actually fallen angels? Spiritual beings who lost their place and tricked people into worshiping them as gods. That would explain why there are so many similarities between mythological figures and biblical accounts. So the Elohim weren't just an abstract idea. They were real beings divided between those who stayed faithful to God and those who fell. Picture this: a spiritual realm full of light, where everyone had a perfect role, until Lucifer's rebellion shattered that order and cast a shadow over creation. That break was so powerful it left marks we still feel today, and we experience the effects of this invisible war in our own lives. Every spiritual battle we face is, in some way, a continuation of this fight between those loyal to the Creator and those trying to destroy His plan. The archangels, especially Michael, are described as warriors of light, leading the heavenly armies. In Revelation 12, we see Michael fighting the dragon, representing Satan and his followers. This passage is one of the most powerful in talking about spiritual warfare, showing that the fight isn't just against physical evil, but against spiritual forces in the heavenly realms. Thinking about this, we have to ask, how many of these battles are still going on today, out of sight? How many times are we protected or influenced by these beings without even knowing it? Here's something interesting. While some angels fell, others became even more active in protecting humanity. Gabriel, for example, appears as a messenger bringing crucial news at key moments, like announcing Jesus' birth. This shows that behind the story we see on the surface, there's a much deeper spiritual drama. A chess game where divine forces and rebellious powers fight over every step we take. And that leads to a bigger question. If ancient civilizations saw these powerful beings as gods, how many times did people, out of ignorance, worship what they shouldn't have? How many cultures fell into the trap of honoring fallen angels, thinking they were benevolent deities? This twisting of truth is one of the enemy's most dangerous tactics, because it pulls attention away from the Creator and leads people down the wrong path. And isn't that exactly what we see today, when so many beliefs and spiritual practices drift away from true faith? As we look at who the Elohim were and how they were seen throughout history, a pattern emerges. Humanity has always tried to understand the supernatural, but hasn't always known who the real friends were and who the enemies were. This lack of clarity led many to build temples, offer sacrifices, worship idols, and unknowingly connect with forces that didn't have our best interests at heart. This is so relevant today that even now, in the 21st century, people worship beings without knowing their true nature. We're repeating the same mistakes over again. I want you to think about this and tell me in the comments. Do you believe the gods of ancient mythologies could actually be the fallen angels mentioned in the Bible? Write it down. I want the truth from the heavens. If you're ready to keep digging with me, this is a deep conversation and I want to hear your thoughts, because it's through talking that we'll reach a deeper understanding. Next, we're going to dig into a secret that's been hidden for thousands of years, a detail that could completely change how you see the origin of humanity and the spiritual war quietly still going on around us. Have you ever wondered why so much of humanity's spiritual history has been erased or ignored? Why, over the centuries, certain stories were carefully removed from sacred texts and the official teachings of major religious institutions? There's a secret so deep and unsettling that many prefer to keep it locked away, as if the truth is too dangerous to be shared. This secret is about the war of the gods before Adam, a conflict that didn't just shape spiritual history, but also change the course of humanity. What if I told you that early religious leaders, when putting together scripture, chose to leave out certain books and stories to protect people from truths they thought were too inconvenient or threatening? Why was the Book of Enoch, with its incredible details about fallen angels, considered dangerous? Who decided we shouldn't have access to this information? Forbidden books like Enoch and Jubilees aren't just ancient curiosities. They're real windows into knowledge that helps us understand what really happened before humans were created. The Book of Enoch, for example, vividly describes angels called Watchers coming down and corrupting the earth, teaching humans sciences and arts that led them away from the original path. It tells how these angels took human women and fathered giants, the Nephilim, a race symbolizing violence and corruption. Now ask yourself, why was this story removed? Would it make us question what we've been taught about the beginning of humanity, or reveal a battle far more intense and complex than the simplified versions we know? Even the Bible itself, like Genesis 6, gives us clues, mentioning the sons of God, who took daughters of men and produced mighty men of old. But the Bible's version is brief, almost like a shadow of the full story. Why the silence? When we read Enoch, we see the conflict between faithful and fallen beings had huge consequences, not just spiritual, but physical. Imagine that behind every ancient civilization, behind every myth about gods and giants, lies a piece of this lost truth. What do you think would happen if everyone knew this story? Wouldn't it change how we see good, evil, and even human origins? The Book of Jubilees goes even further, retelling biblical events with details left out of the traditional version. It talks about cycles, laws, and events linking the divine plan directly to moments of rebellion and judgment. It's almost like these forbidden books are pieces of a puzzle that, once put together, reveal a much bigger and more complex picture than what religious institutions have shared over the centuries. But why would the church hide part of this story? Maybe because telling the whole truth would mean losing control over the narrative, and people's faith might be shaken by a spiritual reality that challenges everything we think we know about heaven, hell, and creation. Many scholars believe these texts were banned because they openly describe direct interaction between celestial beings and humans, something that goes against the traditional idea that God works alone, without powerful intermediaries. By revealing intense wars, betrayals, and alliances among these beings, these books show a spiritual world far more active and complicated than what's usually taught. What if you knew that even before Adam, the earth was already the stage for spiritual battles, and humans were created into a world already marked by conflict? This changes how we see humanity's role and shows we're part of a much bigger story, one that began long before any of us were born. Think about all the stories passed down through generations across different cultures. They talk about beings coming from the sky, wars among gods, and the creation of hybrid creatures. It's no coincidence these stories are so similar, even among groups who never met. What if all these myths are just different pieces of the same truth? Wouldn't it make sense for some religious authorities to hide this information to keep the official version of history unquestioned? Over the centuries, how many truths were burned, locked away in secret libraries, or silenced because they threatened the dominant story? It's clear that something much bigger is behind humanity's story. When we read texts like Enoch and Jubilees, we see that fallen angels didn't just rebel. They actively tried to influence humans, sharing knowledge that was never meant to be revealed. The spiritual war wasn't just a battle in heaven. It became a fight for the soul of humanity. Every act of rebellion from these beings was a challenge to the Creator, and our existence sits right in the middle of this struggle. That's why understanding these stories matters. They speak not just about the past, but the present and future. Have you ever wondered how people would react if all this truth came out? What if the stories in traditional scriptures are just the surface of something much deeper? Maybe that's why religious leaders for centuries decided to protect people from these revelations. But was it really protection or control? That's a question you need to ask yourself. Are you ready to see history without filters, no matter how shocking it might be? I want to hear your thoughts. Do you believe these forbidden books like Enoch and Jubilees hold part of the truth we've never been told? Write in the comments, "I want the truth to be revealed," so I know you're with me on this journey. Next time, we'll keep piecing this together, because there's still so much to uncover about how this war of the gods didn't just affect Adam's creation. It shaped everything we experience today. When we look at humanity's timeline, it becomes clear that the official history we know isn't just incomplete. It's been altered, sometimes deeply, even distorted. There's evidence, both biblical and historical, that points to a much broader and more complex story than what we're taught in school or hear in traditional sermons. If we dig deeper into Scripture, we find passages hinting at a world before humans, a world filled with celestial beings, spiritual battles, and knowledge so powerful it had to be hidden. Take Genesis 6, for example. It says the sons of God took the daughters of men and produced a race of giants, the Nephilim. This brief passage is almost always skimmed over, but it's one of the clearest hints that there was direct interaction between spiritual beings and early humans. What if I told you that different cultures have records confirming this kind of event? Sumerian texts, for instance, talk about the Anunnaki, gods who came from the heavens to rule and teach humans various skills. Clay tablets found in ancient Mesopotamia contain stories surprisingly similar to biblical accounts, filling in some of the deliberately missing details. The Anunnaki were seen as superior beings, with power and knowledge beyond human imagination. Some scholars say they're just symbols of natural forces, but is that really the most likely explanation? What if these stories are actually about fallen angels who presented themselves as gods, deceiving the earliest civilizations? Another example comes from ancient Egypt, where stories mention the Neteru, divine beings who guided society's development. These figures share many similarities with biblical angels and celestial beings. In Greece, the Titans and Olympian gods fought cosmic battles that resemble the spiritual war mentioned in Scripture. How is it that cultures so far apart, with no obvious contact, tell such similar stories? It's like a single story echoed around the world, taking different shapes and names but keeping the same core, powerful, mysterious beings who shaped the beginnings of Earth. If we look at archaeological sites, we find even more evidence. Megaliths like Egypt's pyramids, Stonehenge, and the ruins of Göbekli Tepe still puzzle researchers. How did so-called primitive civilizations, without advanced technology, build monuments aligned with the stars so precisely? Did they get help from beings with superior knowledge? These monuments may not be proof of the War of the Gods, but they suggest something much bigger happened long ago, something beyond human knowledge at the time. Beyond these monuments, Scripture itself is packed with clues. The Book of Job, for example, mentions the morning stars, a term often used for angels, singing for joy when God laid the earth's foundations. This shows celestial beings were already around before humans. Psalm 82 talks about gods who must answer to the Most High, a passage suggesting a divine council, a heavenly court of powerful beings. Isn't it interesting how these texts are rarely discussed in detail? Maybe because they challenge everything we think we know about spiritual hierarchy and creation's true history. Biblical archaeology adds more intriguing hints. Giant skeletons have been found in different parts of the world, some linked to the Nephilim mentioned in Genesis. Of course, many try to dismiss these finds as myths or mistakes. But why such a strong effort to discredit something so many cultures remember? Is the truth really that uncomfortable that it must be hidden? The Sumerians, as I said, clearly say their gods came from the heavens bringing laws, knowledge, and rules for society. It's hard not to see the connection between these accounts and what the Book of Enoch says about the fallen angels. Those who taught humanity forbidden arts like metallurgy, astrology, and occult sciences, leading to corruption. Put these pieces together, and you realize the stories of the Anunnaki and the Watchers might just be two versions of the same event. Spiritual beings directly intervening in humanity's history. Now ask yourself, why isn't this widely known? Why do so many people dismiss it as myth or fiction? The answer is simple. Because these truths challenge the story we've been told and threaten the worldview we've been taught. Accepting that there was a war among gods, that powerful beings walked the earth before Adam, means admitting we live in a universe far more spiritual and complex than most believe. That shakes the foundations of our thinking, especially the power structures that control history. That's why we're here, to break down those walls and explore hidden truths. Think about it. If all the evidence points in the same direction, why weren't we told from the start? What would be revealed if we accepted that celestial beings shaped humanity's destiny? If you're still with me and this all makes sense, write in the comments, "The evidence is before us." I want to know who's truly awake and ready to question the so-called absolute truths. Next time, we'll keep connecting these dots, because there's still a lot more to uncover about this hidden story, and how it still echoes today. The fall of Lucifer is, without a doubt, one of the most powerful and mysterious moments in all of spiritual history. Imagine a being created with perfection, splendor, and authority. Someone who stood close to the Creator's throne, reflecting divine light like a mirror. This being, described in texts like Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28, is called the morning star, an anointed cherub with access to sacred places, adorned with precious stones and crowned with wisdom. But at some point, everything changed. Pride, envy, and the desire to be equal to God took root in his heart. That sparked a rebellion that didn't just shake the heavens, it changed the entire history of the universe forever. Can you imagine the impact of that? It wasn't just a battle of ideas, it was a real war with eternal consequences. Lucifer didn't fall alone. He took a third of the angels with him, convincing them to join his rebellion against the Creator. It's almost unimaginable how much power he had to sway beings who lived in God's presence to turn against the truth. That's one reason he's called the father of lies. Someone who could twist reality so much that even celestial beings, with all their knowledge, were deceived. This war wasn't silent. The Bible gives us a glimpse in Revelation 12, where Michael and his angels fight the dragon and his followers. This battle isn't just a thing of the past. It's a constant reminder that evil has always tried to take the place of light. Few people realize that the word Lucifer means light bearer, or the one who shines. It makes you wonder, how could someone so bright and so close to the truth fall so far? The answer lies in pride. He no longer wanted to reflect the Creator's light. He wanted to be the source. He wanted worship and control, things that didn't belong to him. Interestingly, some lesser-known interpretations suggest Lucifer didn't just want to be equal to God. He wanted to change the entire universe. Ancient texts and traditions hint that his rebellion started long before Adam was created. Some scholars think this war was fueled by jealousy over humanity's future, that humans, made in God's image, would play a special role in the divine plan. For Lucifer, the idea that seemingly inferior beings could have such a close connection with the Creator might have been unbearable. This helps explain why Adam and Eve were attacked so quickly in Eden, with the serpent trying to derail mankind's first steps. Another less discussed point is what happened to the angels who fell with Lucifer. They didn't lose their powers, only their connection to holiness. They became corrupt forces, full of hatred and a thirst for revenge, spreading error and chaos among humans. These rebellious angels, led by Lucifer, continue working behind the scenes throughout history, trying to destroy everything that reflects God's image. That's why even today, we feel the effects of this war in spiritual attacks, temptations, and the divisions we see in society. The Book of Enoch reveals shocking details about these fallen angels, showing how they taught humans forbidden knowledge, arts of war, astrology, and occult practices. This led humanity down destructive paths, pulling it further from the Creator. When you think about it, this interference clearly shows Lucifer's hatred for God's plan for Earth. He knew that by corrupting humans, he could try to prove that divine creation was doomed to fail. So this conflict isn't just about power, it's about who is right. A battle that spans all of time. Have you ever thought about how many struggles we face might be echoes of this ancient war? How often do we feel unseen forces trying to pull us away from the path of light? That's because we still live in the aftermath of this cosmic battle, and the enemy keeps spreading lies, pretending he still holds power. But the truth is, victory has already been declared by the Creator. Still, the war goes on, because he refuses to stop deceiving those seeking the truth. There's also a lesser-known idea that Lucifer's fall wasn't just one event, but part of a bigger cycle, where each act of rebellion opens the door to new spiritual battles. This means we're not just bystanders. We're active participants in this story. Our choices, attitudes, and faith all affect this invisible war. That's why Scripture keeps telling us to watch and pray. We're in the middle of a fight for our souls, and it's not just symbolic, it's real. Now I want to hear from you. Do you believe Lucifer's fall and the angels' rebellion still influence what happens in the world today? Comment below with, "I will not close my eyes to the truth," if this story still speaks to you. Your voice matters to this channel, because together we can explore these hidden truths that have been kept for centuries. In the next few minutes, we'll keep unraveling this mystery and see how Adam's creation connects directly to this cosmic war and humanity's destiny. When we talk about Adam's creation, we can't ignore the heavy silence about what happened before him. The Bible presents mankind's creation as a special moment, when God breathed life into Adam and placed him in a perfect garden. But what if Adam wasn't just the first man, but a key part of a bigger plan? A restoration after a devastating war that already happened in the heavens, and maybe even on Earth. Was humanity created to fill the place of something lost or corrupted? That question is powerful and can totally change how we understand not just where we come from, but why we exist. Because before Adam, there was already a story, a war, a rebellion, a fall of spiritual beings who turned away from the Creator. It's as if God was starting a new chapter, creating a race made to reflect His image and walk in fellowship with Him, standing in direct contrast to the rebellion that had already stained the universe. The breath of life given to Adam wasn't just an act of creation. It was a declaration of authority, proof that even in the face of destruction caused by rebellion, God's plan could not be stopped. Adam was placed as the steward of Eden, but also as a witness to a story that began long before him. The fact that the serpent is in the garden from the very start is a clear sign the conflict was still ongoing, even after humanity's creation. Did Adam and Eve know about the war that had already taken place? Did they have any idea what Lucifer and the fallen angels had done? The silence in the story makes us wonder if part of it was intentionally hidden. Maybe because humanity wasn't ready to grasp the full scale of this conflict. If you think about it, the test in Eden, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, might have been a way to teach humanity the importance of trusting the Creator without looking for shortcuts or going their own way. Something Lucifer had already tried. Adam wasn't just made to rule the earth. He was meant to live in harmony with God's original plan, a plan that had been challenged and stained by rebellion. Here's an interesting question. Why did God create humans in His image and likeness? Could it be directly related to Lucifer's fall in that earlier war? Some scholars and less traditional views suggest God wanted to show that His glory and love could be reflected even in beings made from dust, proving that true power isn't about pride or force, but humility and obedience. In other words, Adam was living proof that the Creator doesn't need beings trying to take His place, because He can raise up creatures who rule wisely and lovingly alongside Him. If you look deeper, Eden wasn't just a beautiful garden. It was a strategic stronghold, a sanctuary where God's presence was fully revealed. Why create such a perfect place with every resource for just two people? Maybe because Adam and Eve were the new hope amid the chaos left by the rebellious angels. They were placed there as representatives of a new covenant, a fresh start for a plan already under attack. Have you ever wondered why humans were given the mission to subdue the earth? That word, often misunderstood, might mean much more. To steward, not to exploit or destroy, but to restore, organize, and protect. This hints that the earth had already been marked by spiritual warfare, and humanity was created to bring back divine order. Which raises the big question, was Adam made just to replace something lost? Maybe so, called to fill a space left empty by Lucifer's fall and his followers, proving that obedience and love are stronger than pride and rebellion. Another thing to think about is how quickly temptation showed up. There's no long period of peace in Eden before the serpent deceives Eve. That suggests the enemy was already waiting, ready to corrupt the new creation. It's almost like he saw Adam as a threat to his dark kingdom, someone to be destroyed from the start. The serpent's deception wasn't just a simple trick. It was part of a much bigger war already raging. If we look at apocryphal accounts, some suggest humanity was created right in the middle of this intense spiritual conflict, as a divine response to the chaos caused by the fallen angels. The Book of Jubilees, for example, talks about creation in cycles and seasons, almost like every step was part of a strategic plan. Adam's creation was a milestone in restoration, the beginning of a new order set by the Creator. All of this makes us think about our own role. If Adam was born into a war zone, what does that mean for us, his descendants? Maybe we're more involved in this spiritual battle than we realize. Every choice, every attitude, every thought is part of this struggle that started long before we were here. The silence about the past might actually be an invitation to dig deeper and understand that we're not just bystanders, but active players in a cosmic story. So here's a question for you. Have you ever thought Adam's creation might be connected to something lost before him? Write in the comments. I want to understand the original plan. If you're ready to keep exploring this journey with me, questioning and uncovering everything we've heard, next time, we'll dive deeper into how this war connects to not only Adam's life, but the whole history of humanity. And what if this spiritual battle that started long before Adam is still going on today, unseen, shaping every part of our lives? Looking at history, it's clear the effects of this cosmic war didn't end in the past. Lucifer's rebellion, the fall of the angels, and the creation of man weren't isolated moments. They're chapters in an ongoing story still being written, which means each of us, whether we realize it or not, live in the middle of a war that never ends. A battle between spiritual forces fighting for our minds, hearts, and destiny. What if I told you that many of the struggles you face today aren't just random events, but reflections of an invisible battle? Have you ever felt like something bigger, something you can't see, is working behind the scenes in your life? That thought invites us to pause and reflect deeply. What's our purpose in the middle of all this? We're not here by accident, just like Adam wasn't created by accident. If God chose to make us in His image, even after all the rebellion and destruction caused by Lucifer and his angels, it's because we have a vital role in the story. Maybe your purpose isn't just to live an ordinary life, go to work, pay bills, and follow a routine that feels empty. Maybe you were called to something much bigger, something that means choosing a side in this war. What if true victory isn't about material things, but about keeping your light shining in the darkness? Look around. The world today is full of signs that this spiritual battle is still going on. Conflicts, violence, injustice, division. They all seem like part of a much bigger game where invisible forces try to pull humanity away from the truth and the original purpose for which we were made. The serpent that deceived Eve is still whispering today, just under different names and in new forms. It shows up as voices telling us we don't matter, that life is random, that nothing has real meaning. But what if those voices are just tricks designed to pull us away from our true selves? The question is, how many times have you believed those lies without realizing you were caught in this war? If there's one lesson this story teaches, it's that we need to be aware. Life isn't just about what we see. It's also about what we don't see. When you feel attacked by things you can't explain, when you face dark moments of doubt, you might be right in the middle of a spiritual battle. That doesn't mean living in fear, but living with awareness. Every day we face a choice. Listen to the Creator's voice, or fall for the enemy's lies. That's the real fight. And every choice, every thought, is like an arrow in this war. Think for a second. If Adam had known the size of this battle from the start, would he have fallen for the serpent's trap? Aren't we falling for the same traps today because we ignore the forces at work behind the scenes? Maybe this is the most important question from this video. How ready are you to see beyond what's obvious? How many times do we accept the stories we're told without asking questions, without searching for the truth ourselves? The truth is, as long as we stay blind to this spiritual reality, we'll stay vulnerable. This reflection also asks us to consider our own purpose. What's your mission in all this? Do you think you were born just to exist or to make a difference? Maybe you're here to be a light in a world growing darker every day. Maybe your life means more than you realize. And the proof is that opposing forces are always trying to discourage you, distract you, and make you give up. But if you're hearing this now, It's because something inside you knows it's time to wake up, that you're part of something bigger. And what if I told you that all the pain, loss, and challenges you've faced could have a greater meaning within this war? Often, it's in the hardest battles that we discover our true strength, our real faith. That's the lesson we see again and again in the Bible. Ordinary people called to fight, not with human weapons, but with faith, courage, and trust in the Creator. You're part of this story too, even if you don't realize it yet. Think about it now. What battles have you faced in your life that might be part of this spiritual war? More importantly, are you choosing to fight or letting the enemy win without a fight? This is a crucial question, because as long as we don't understand what's really at stake, we'll keep living as if everything is just luck or fate. But it's not. There are forces trying to keep us from our purpose, and a Creator calling us to rise up and make a difference. If this message speaks to you, write in the comments, "I choose to see the truth." I want to know who's ready to take a stand in this invisible battle and live with awareness of their purpose. Next time, we'll keep exploring how this story doesn't just change how we see the past, but affects the choices we make now, and how we can use this knowledge to transform our lives and those around us. If you've made it this far, it's because you're truly committed to seeking the truth and uncovering mysteries buried for thousands of years. And I want to thank you for staying with me to the end. Now I have 3 important things for you to do. First, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss future videos. We'll be diving even deeper into these spiritual secrets, and you won't want to miss a thing. Second, leave a like to show YouTube this content matters. It helps more people who are searching for answers find it. And finally, to show you stayed till the end, comment below with, "I want to go beyond the surface." I'll be reading the comments and want to see who the true seekers of truth are. Oh, and don't go just yet. Click the next video on your screen and keep this journey going with me. I'll be waiting because the next revelation will surprise you even more.